Bonjour tout le monde, and welcome to another episode of Turn Back the Clock with Stock. This is episode number 3. I hope you're enjoying them. I'm enjoying making them. First things first. Free publicity. Go see it December 18th. I can't wait. Now, let's get on with some French history. September 6th, 1757, we had the birth of Marie-Joseph Paul-Yves Roch Gilbert de Motier de Lafayette, also known as the Marquis de Lafayette. Here's a picture of him. Probably the most famous picture of him. I forget who painted it. Sorry, kids. He fought for the United States in the American Revolution, 1776. He also was a good friend of George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, a lot of the founding fathers. He fought also for France, or for the revolutionaries in the French Revolution. That's in 1789. And then also in the July Revolution in 1830. Now, he's buried in the Picpus Cemetery in Paris next to his wife. The soil he's buried under comes from Bunker Hill, so it was transferred over there especially for him. He was given full military honors at his funeral from France, and also President Jackson declared that he should receive the same honors as George Washington did when he died. John Quincy Adams said of him in a 3-hour eulogy, "He is high on the list of the pure and disinterested benefactors of mankind." So that tells you the type of man he was. Now, on September 7th, 1812, Napoleon forces the Russians to fight at Borodino, which is the bloodiest battle in history up to this point in history. Napoleon at this point was invading Russia. He was on his way to Moscow to defeat Tsar Alexander. During this battle at Borodino, there were 70,000 fatalities. The Russian troops retreated, and the French troops moved on to Moscow, which fell a week later. The Russian troops were not completely out of the picture, though, because once Napoleon took Moscow, Tsar Alexander wasn't yet defeated himself. The Russian troops came into play again. Napoleon could not see a clear path to victory, so he took his troops out, and the invasion was defeated. So this just goes to show you, you may not win a battle, but don't give up, because you could still win the war. Now, on September 9th, 1901, we have the death of Henri-Marie Raymond de Toulouse-Lautrec Moffat, also known as Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. Here's a photo of him. He was a very famous French artist. He was in the post-impressionist period. His contemporaries were Gauguin, Cézanne, Van Gogh, a lot of those. He loved to paint entertainment pictures, dancers, cafes, social life, those sorts of things. His favorite subject was a woman named Jane Avril. She was a dancer. There she is kicking up her leg with her red hair. She was a fiery redhead. And he also loved to paint her not only in her entertainment capacity, but also just in an everyday capacity. This one is called Jane Avril Leaving the Moulin Rouge. So there you can kind of see a more somber side of her. One of my favorite paintings of his can actually be seen up in Chicago. Here's a representation of it. It's called At the Moulin Rouge. And Lautrec put himself right there in the painting. But what I love best about this is this woman right up here with the green face looking directly at us. I don't know what it is about her. I just love that image. So that's one of my favorites. Go see it sometime when you're in Chicago. Now, you may have seen that in this initial picture of him, let me pull it up here again, he was a rather short man. He had something called, and I apologize if I mispronounce this, pycnodosostosis, and it was a bone disease that left him only 4 feet 8 inches tall. Toulouse-Lautrec was a bit of a controversial figure in Paris because he had a habit of getting in a boat with all of his painting stuff, rowing out to the middle of the Seine, dropping anchor, and then taking off all his clothes, getting naked, and then painting in the boat while he's naked. So, welcome to Paris. If you have any posters at home of movies or performers or anything at all, you have Toulouse-Lautrec to thank, because he really, especially with his entertainment pictures, he really brought forth this idea of using art to promote something. not just show a historical event, but promote something. So billboards, movie posters, all of that. We have Toulouse-Lautrec to thank for it. Now, September 12th, 1066. This is one of my favorite things in history. William the Conqueror set sail for England. Here's a statue of William the Conqueror in northwestern France. Now, William the Conqueror in French is known as Guillaume le Conquérant. I love the name Guillaume. Great French name. Now, the King of England at the time was Edward the Confessor, and he died without leaving any direct heir. He had a cousin named Harold Godwinson, and he said, well, I should get the crown. William the Conqueror said, no, I should get the crown. He was also a cousin. So he got all of his friends together. They crossed the English Channel. And on October 14th, 1066, they defeated the English at the Battle of Hastings. He took the Crown of England for France. And if you look at the Crown of England today, you'll see that it has the fleur-de-lis sign on it, that kind of three-leafed flower. That is the original symbol of France. And so that still remains on the British crown. He introduced a lot of French culture and vocabulary into the British royal system, and that's become kind of a basis of our language and culture today. Have you ever wondered why we raise cows but we eat beef, we raise pigs but we eat pork? It's all because of William the Conqueror. He wanted that sophistication. Now we've got one more thing this week, also on September 12th, but this time in 1940. So what is that, 900 years later? 4 teenage boys discover the Lascaux cave paintings in southern France, in the Dordogne region. Now these were Paleolithic cave paintings, and there's an image of one of them. You can see maybe a cow right there, a horse over here. I see. Oh, there's bull with horns and stuff. Very interesting. I've never been to that region. I'd like to go sometime. In 1948, these caves were open to the public so everyone could see them. But in 1963, they closed them because they discovered that the carbon dioxide that we exhale, a lot of the germs and bacteria that we brought in on our clothing and on our bodies and whatever, it was starting to deteriorate the painting, so they closed it to the public. 20 years later, in 1983, they opened a replica of the caves so that you could still see what they were, just not with any danger to them. However, in the early 2000s, it was discovered that fungus and black mold, that very destructive black mold, had started to infest the cave system. So scientists are trying to work hard to figure out a way to take care of that. There are only a few scientists who are allowed to enter the cave, though, and that's not only by their own standards, because they want to preserve the caves, but also by UNESCO. This is an international organization. They've named the Lascaux Caves as a World Heritage Site. So hopefully they'll figure out a way to preserve those paintings. I do want to take a moment and give a shout out to my good friend Joey Holt. He's making a video series for his middle school history classes called A Week in Review, where he reviews the previous week's lessons. I've enjoyed it. It's a very interesting series for me. I'm not a big history person. I like history when I learn about it, but I don't retain a lot of information. However, he has a way of simplifying complex concepts and really making things easy to remember. So also, you'll see how these videos are supposed to be made, because he does a great job. He did our travel video this summer when we went on a road trip. I really suggest that you check them out. I'm going to put a link below. There'll be several other links down there too. Go check out things, and I will see you next week. A bientôt. Yeah!